What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me for another episode, or descent into madness. So it's been a roller coaster of emotions these past few days. So let me just get you caught up. So I've been away. This is probably my first episode back in probably, a year. Essentially, I had got discouraged from doing this because reading stories got to be so much work. Not the reading part, but acquiring them, I guess you could say. Having to go onto different Reddits, messaging the authors and like, hey, can I read your story? And then like if they don't get back with you, then you don't have an answer, and I'd rather be safe instead of sorry and just not read the story. So doing that story after story, it got to be so tedious. I just didn't want to do it anymore. Because I respect the author's permission. Like I don't want to just read a story to read a story, unless they explicitly say you can. So with that being said, I watch a lot of Creepcast, right? I watch a lot. I listen to it a lot. I've listened to every single. Oh my God, my daughter's calling. Yeah, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she is. She's a teenager in every aspect of the word. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh, so yeah. I watch a lot of Hunter and Big Lips a lot. So since I listen to a lot of them, I go to their subreddit quite often, and I've posted a couple parts to one of the stories that I'm writing, and didn't really get any response on it, which is fine. But in that community, it seems like there's a lot of people in there who just want to build each other up. A lot of people have a lot of good things to say to other artists and other people like me who would narrate their stories. There's a lot of good input, and I feel like it's just a community that builds each other up, as opposed to No Sleep or Creepypasta or all the other subreddits that have anything to do with horror for the most part. I'm sure there's some outliers that are just as good, but this community has been so good and encouraging to people who are starting from nothing or may submit their first story. Let's say they submit their first story and they're really nervous, and people will, for the most part, I have seen some kind of backhanded comments in there. There's not a lot, but it's like some of them you can tell they're from people who think they're just better than you. There's not a lot, though. That is probably the sub 1%. But the majority of people just, they want to build you up. They want to encourage you to write more, and they just want to help. And they want you to help them. They want you to read their story and tell them what you think. So I really like the community. So whoever had started that by themselves, because I know it wasn't started by Hunter and Wendigoon. So whoever did start that up, good on you, man. That was awesome. But where I was getting at is, so after being gone for so long, I needed stories. I needed something that was new, that I hadn't read before. And so I took the risk and I posted on there. I said, hey, I've got a small podcast. It's I'm coming back and I would like to read some stories. So if anybody would like their story read, to post it or send it to the orzhovmedia at gmail.com. Sorry, try not to burp on mic, or that email. So I was pretty much met with overwhelming responses. A lot of people, a lot of authors were just throwing their stuff in there, and made me feel good inside. And it's encouraging, so I can continue to read stories for all you guys, and And for me, the selfish part of me, I get to read some awesome stories and put it on here. So there was a lot of that were in there. And I wanted to say to all the people that commented their stories, and they're relatively short, like I'm talking a paragraph or maybe like half a page, not very long, like anywhere from either a minute to read or like under 5 minutes. I'm not going to read those right this second. So be patient. I will get to all those stories that were posted. Like I want to express my gratitude by reading every one of the stories. But I will prioritize the longer ones first, just because there's more meat to them and they fill an episode more. I'm going to take all the small ones, and it's just going to be one long episode of just a bunch of short stories. So if you don't hear your story within the coming weeks or even months, even because there was a lot of stuff in there, so I'm going to be backed up for a bit. But if you don't hear your story in there, it's coming. It's just going to be all condensed into one episode. But it's going to be further down the line. But I will get to them. I promise you. I promise. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, since I've recorded this episode 3 times now, and I was pretty pissed off. I had messaged one of the authors, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just doing some, post-production and some editing, and then I should be able to upload the episode." And during that process, I'm a simple man. I use Audacity to record. It's one of the best free tools you can use to record just raw vocals. If you want to do other things, like go full production, then yeah, Audacity is probably not the best bet. Then you can get into Reaper and, Logic Pro and all that shit. But for me, I just use it because all I do is record just my voice. They have the editing tools that I need, so I just use it. It's simple, it's free. And it's really good. It's powerful for what it is. But yeah, Audacity had came out with a new version that was in beta. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like the interface was all changed. It looked more modern. And I was recording on there. And it had like a save to the cloud option, which I was doing. And in the midst of everything, when I was editing everything, the program crashed, and I was like, cool. Like it like I saw the little symbol on the bottom, save to the cloud, and I was like, sick. I'll just reopen it. I reopen it. It tells me there's some error opening the program or the file, and I was like, what? So I go into my documents, and I click on there, try to open it, won't open. I'm like, well, fuck. Like if it would have deleted just the part that I had just recorded, I guess that's okay, but it really sucks. But it like corrupted the entire thing. I go into the cloud, I click on that file, won't open. So I just lost like probably 2 hours of work. But here we are. That's how it goes sometimes. So I was recording that one, but while I was recording that one, I had come across some points that I wanted to bring up before the episode, just because I think it can either add or take away from the episode. It's kind of like in the eye of the beholder at this point. But the things I wanted to ask is, so I know I'm going to compare like Creepcast a lot. Just don't take it as like I'm trying to copy them. I just like their channel, and it's what I watch the most. And so like things they do, I think anybody can do. Like for instance, they record live, so you get to see all the fuck ups. In mine, I usually edit out everything I do. Like one story can be like 20 takes, like 20 multiple takes because I fuck up or like I get tongue tied or something like that, and I have to re-record it. Do you guys want me to keep that in? Because some of it's fucking funny. Like I'll be like, how do like, stuff like that. Not like Hunter's like, ah! Ah! I fucking love that shit, dude. It cracks me up. But I know some people don't like that because it kind of takes away or adds humor where it shouldn't. I love it. I think it's funny. At times, I think I do it too much. Fuck up. So if I was actually reading your story, it probably wouldn't be flattering to your story. I think it adds more character to the story, and and a little bit of humor. So if you want me to keep that in, let me know. I'm going to edit it out on this episode, but if you think that would be something you wanted to hear, let me know. I'll always post to my Patreon first, just because that's in there. If you want, I could maybe like make like one of the sub tiers be like, you get to hear out all the outtakes and stuff like that, like the pre-edited version, I guess you could say, or not. I don't care. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on is, and I swear I'm getting to the story, I know I'm rambling. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the Patreon itself. I'm not asking for subs. I'm talking about if people did decide to. At first, I had a Discord set up, and I made it to where, like, depending on your whatever you chose for your sub, it would apply you a title, and it would automatically let you join into the Discord. But since I got discouraged and I ended up quitting, I scrapped the Discord altogether. So if you'd like to have a Discord so you can share stories or like share movies, like I love cheesy B-80s movies, like, but there's so many out there that I haven't seen. So like it's a great place to just like share those things, because you can find all types of cool stuff on the internet. But if you wanted to do that, just let me know and I can start it up. It takes just a few minutes, so I don't mind to do that. But yeah, I think that covers everything that I figured out kind of like midway through one of the other recordings that I wanted to get out of the way in the beginning of the episode. So, sorry. Last thing was, originally in the other episodes, I would kind of like touch on magic things. Like if I didn't like something, or if I did like something about magic, or my current deck builds, or like my current favorite cards, or sets that are releasing past or present, or like I'll be at MagicCon in Atlanta, not as a creator, just as a consumer. But if you'd like to see that, or like maybe in the Patreon, I could do like a live stream of being at MagicCon, or of a game, playing a game with either friends, or like maybe if I was able to play a game with one of the creators, I'd probably get my ass kicked. But, playing a game with them and live streaming it, something like that, something cool. If not, then we won't worry about it. But things like that. If you don't want any kind of magic content in there, let me know too. I'm not going to include it in this episode. I want to get all the input from everybody. I want to know what kind of content you guys want to hear, so then I can cater to you guys. That's all I want to do. Because I know in my view, it comes out a certain way, it appears a certain way. Like, do I want to do solely audio, or do I want to, since I'm using Spotify now, I could use my webcam so you guys could see my ugly mug. Show your face. Like stuff like that, or I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas out there. But I have talked long enough. Wild work. Okay, so this story comes to us by author Late-Satisfaction 54, and this one is actually their July submission to the Tales from the Creeps subreddit. This one is called Sun Swellers, and it appears to be a cosmic horror and Lovecraftian style story, which are some of my favorites. That's actually what I'm writing right now. Not cosmic horror, well, actually, yeah, and Lovecraftian. So that is definitely my cup of tea. So without further ado, I give you the Sun Swellers. That's what they call them, the Sun Swellers. Sounds pretty badass for some creature that's the result of Earth roasting like a rotisserie chicken. I normally would have given them a more fearful name, just so we're constantly reminded of what's happening. Not that I could list you any. I'm not a very creative person. None of these scientists can really do anything about it. We aren't capable of producing a ship strong enough to withhold being that close to the surface of the sun. We aren't even sure what these fuckers look like. Just that they're massive. I imagine giant leeches that suction onto the side of the sun we can't see and move to the other side when it's about to show itself to Earth. They don't want to be seen, which creeps me out even more. It's been about a week or two since we found out about these things, and we found them by listening to the sun. I won't bore you with the details, considering I don't know them much myself. But basically, the sun sounded different compared to how it used to. And then they did some math and concluded that there must be giant lumps of something hiding on the surface. We don't know if they're feeding, giving to the sun, or even mating on the sun. But we know that they are responsible for the sun swelling. Thinking about this is stressing me out all over again. My thoughts are scattered and I need a drink to calm my nerves. I walk over to my fridge, navigating through the mounds of garbage that line my trailer. The smell is sickening, and my nose is begging for mercy. Once I wiggle my way through, I grab a beer from the fridge and I sit at the kitchen table. This shit is fucking embarrassing, I thought, sipping on my beer. It's not my garbage lining the hallways, it's my mother's. She got into a pretty gnarly accident a couple years ago, paralyzed her, got into a coma, woke up, and ever since she came home, she's turned into some sort of hoarder. I try to take out the trash, but she yells at me when I do. I can't leave her. She won't last on her own. I love her so much, but it destroys me to see her like this. I stand up and walk outside onto our porch. The cold night winter air fills my lungs, and it has never felt so good. The last winter, huh? I thought, sipping my beer. The scientists estimated the sun would grow large enough to cook the earth in about 2 days. And that estimate might be wrong. I got no job, but I do consider myself smart. By my math, we have less than a week. We might only have a day, possibly even hours. The rate of the sun's expansion is rising so fast that it's impossible to actually know. I don't blame them for trying to instill some hope in us surviving somehow. But I've come to peace with the truth. I worm my way back to the couch. I move a garbage bag out of the way and sit down. I flicker on the TV and switch it onto the news channel. My blood runs cold. I watch as the news shows hundreds of thousands of tiny black pods descending upon the Earth. Some don't manage to reach and get caught in an orbit, giving Earth a black ring. The obviously panicked news anchor explains that these pods come out from behind the sun and shot directly towards us. The atmosphere isn't burning them up, which twists my stomach even more than it already was. I shift uncontrollably in my seat as the screen switches to the news anchor himself, sweating profusely but swearing that everything is okay. I scoff when he says that, and right as I go to change the channel, the power cuts out. Great. They hit the power lines. I get up with a groan, and my back tweaks, causing a louder groan. I peek my head down the hallway. "Are you all right, Mom?" I yelled out. Silence. "Mom!" I yelled again. Nothing. My eyes go wide and I start to scamper over. Turning around halfway, though, to get a flashlight. Tumbling over mounds and mounds of trash. Although it's a short distance, I'm out of breath by the time I reach the door. I practically kick the door open and run in worriedly, shining the light in her face. "What the fuck is wrong with you, boy?" My mom grumbled, setting down her book. "Me? What the fuck is wrong with you?" Even though I was a grown man, I flinched at the look she gave me. I cleared my throat. "Sorry, but why didn't you say anything when I called your name? You fucking scared me." "I didn't hear you," she said, picking her book back up. I scoffed and walked out of her room, going to check on the breaker next. A giant boom followed by a shockwave that shakes the trailer and sends me flying into the piles of garbage, nearly makes me piss myself. I quickly throw the trash off and sprint back to my mom's room, opening the door. "Fuck off, boy. They're just chopping trees nearby. Let me enjoy some literature before I burn to a fucking crisp." She didn't bother to look at me. Chopping trees down when the world is going to burn in a couple hours? Unlikely. "God forbid I care about you," I mumbled, shutting the door and walking away. Fuck the breaker, I'm just going to go outside. The stench is getting to me and I'm going to vomit if I spend another minute in here. I grab my coat and boots and swing the door open and step outside, slamming it behind me, just so the universe knows I'm upset. I reach into my coat pocket and take out a cigarette. I bring it to my mouth as I try to convince my dying lighter to light up one more time. I see something in my peripheral dart. I glance over, but see nothing. Just a rabbit. I light my cigarette and then chuck my lighter into our dumpster. Could refill it, but I don't really care at this point. I lean against the banister and take a drag. I take out my phone and scroll on Instagram, but then I see it again. But this time, it did it in front of me. I stared upwards and glared at the tree that I knew it was behind. Without taking my eyes off the tree, I walk backwards towards the door, open it, and reach for the shotgun just off to the side. "Mom, stay inside, okay?" I yell, knowing she probably isn't listening anyways. I grasp the shotgun and shut the door behind me. It still hasn't moved. I slowly walk forward, but stop about 10 feet away. "Show yourself!" I yell and steady my shotgun. I hear the snow crunch behind the tree as whatever it is shifts around. But before I can say anything, it darts behind another tree, this one only 5 feet away. The fear that now took over my body is almost indescribable. Didn't even see what it was, but just the thought of anything being that fast scared me. I started to retreat slowly back towards the trailer. I noticed that the night sky was now turning to day. It was only 3 a.m. and the sun wasn't in the sky. I started trembling, and right as I glanced upwards, I heard snow crunch, and then a warm sensation started to drip down. I felt like I was peeing my pants, but when I glanced down to my stomach, all I see is a giant claw mark, gushing blood. I fall to my knees. I fumble for my phone and manage to dial 911 before tumbling down into the snow. I couldn't hear what the lady on the phone was saying. Was it even English? The snow around me became soft and pillowy. It had never felt so comfortable. My thoughts as well as my vision became muddled, yet there was still a noticeable voice in the back of my mind, slightly muffled by the sirens in my head lulling me to a final slumber. But it was still there, screaming at me to help my mother. It would come for her next. I knew that, yet all I wanted to do was sleep. But I couldn't. We were all gonna fucking die anyways. But I'll be damned if I let my mother or myself die to this fucking creature from space. As I crawled vigorously to the steps, I noticed the snow around me was beginning to melt slowly, and I glanced up to the sky turning to a dark orange color. I gritted my teeth and stood up. My body was failing, but I can't let it. I went up the stairs, one hardly fought step at a time. I tried to yell for my mother, but nothing came out other than blood. I slammed open the door and stumbled towards her bedroom. Navigating trash piles now was harder than ever. My blood was pooling on the slippery plastic bags, causing me to faceplant into the mess. I can't bring myself to stand, so I drag myself across the garbage. Something sharp in one of the bags snags on my open wound and cuts it open even more. The pain is unbearable, but I must keep going. It's not until I reach my mother's door that I look back and realize that my intestines are dragging behind me. The sight freaks me out, but I gotta hold on. Inside the trailer, it's boiling and the trash is cooking. The smell makes me vomit on the floor. I hear a window smash as I desperately reach up to the handle and open her door. I can only watch as my mom flails her arms, trying to punch the thing as it drags her out of the window. The broken glass that was left slices her throat open as she's dragged away. I barely even react on the outside, but on the inside I was sobbing. I crawled all the way here for jack shit. In my last attempt to spare myself from cooking, I use all of my strength to heave the shotgun underneath my chin. I pulled the trigger, but hear a click. I forgot to put a shell in, and they're all the way back at the front door. I managed to actually let out a sob as I drop the shotgun while my eyes start to close. The heat is starting to cook my skin, and I can see it char. All I can do now is go to sleep and pray that I see my mother again. I know I said I came to peace with it, but I'm terrified. And that is it. That was Sunswellers. It definitely leaves you like, I want to know more about the creatures. Like, that was awesome. My only complaint is that it was as short as it was. I want to know more about the creatures, what they look like, what they're doing there, why they're taking people or attacking. Sorry. That would be awesome to know. I know one of the comments in here said that it was linking all the other stories that he had together. So if it does do that, Satisfaction, can you tell me what stories this does link to, if any, so then we can kind of like have a chronological order? That would be so sick, because a story that continues into a different story but still connected to the first one is so cool. Like you're creating like your own lore at that point. But that was awesome. Sun Swellers by late-satisfaction 54. Love it. Thank you for letting me read your story, man. Really appreciate it. And congrats on the story, because it's a big thing to finish one. So, all right. So on to our next story. The next one is going to be... Where did it go? Oh my God. Come on, dude. Okay. All right. Here we go. So this one is going to be from nuisance_bringer on Reddit. So you can find their stories there. So hopefully this one is a banger, which I know it already is. The ending, since I've read this 3 times already, I'm going to act surprised, like, oh man, didn't see that coming. But yeah, this one definitely has some twists and turns towards the end. But yeah, this one is pretty much like a fucked up Christmas story. So hope you enjoy it. So this one is called All We Wanted Was Mom's Tree. Nuisance_bringer on Reddit. Thank you again for letting me read your story and having you put your faith in me. I appreciate it. It means a lot. Okay, let's get into it. This was going to be the first Christmas we'd spend without Mom, and picking out a tree was one of the last things I wanted to do. Dad was adamant that I had to come, saying something about Mom would want us to celebrate. But what was there to celebrate? This was her favorite holiday, and she wasn't here anymore. So what's the point? Mags, we're almost there, Dad chimed, trying so desperately to keep his composure. He couldn't try to hide the pain, but I knew the look. I saw it every day in the mirror. Yeah, whatever. I continued looking out the window. If I was home, I'd be FaceTiming my friends, trying to plan next week's sleepover. Being home was so miserable. Just constant reminders of Mom everywhere. Dad crying nearly every night. Bland food all the time. Chores piling up. Our house was a home and Mom was always on top of it. But without her, everything felt like it was in limbo. And I never wanted to be there because of it. Honey, he tried again, his tone a bit more somber. We're going to be optimistic. Find a tree that screams, Mom. And we're going to set it up like she always did. His hands gave a little flare on the steering wheel when he said her name. You can set it up all you want. I'm going to bed when we get home. Maggie. What? I huffed. We sat in a tense silence before he picked the conversation up again. Look, I know this is hard. He sounded defeated, like thinking of what to say drained him. And I'm going to be honest. I didn't want to come either. This took me by surprise. I looked over and he had tears streaming down his face. But your mother would have wanted us to still be a family. She'd want us to pick up the most massive, god-ugly tree and give it the celebration of its life. Do you know that's why she picked the worst trees every year? She wanted to give the ones that would never have a chance a place to be like the rest. She told me that only last year after trying to make her get a good tree for once. He sighed. A reverent smile plastered under his tear-streaked eyes. That woman sure was a blessing. Dad. I struggled to keep from crying myself. Was that her secret to making Christmas so magical? The holiday charm didn't start until we got that stupid tree. And from there, she made Christmas appear out of thin air, like it was nothing. He continued, "All I'm asking for is one night, sweetie. It's not going to be easy, but this will be the worst it gets. Every Christmas after will be easier and easier. Let's make her happy." I sat for a long while, trying not to cry more. If she was here, she would be nagging me about Christmas spirit and how I was being a sourpuss. I laughed at the thought, tears freely rolling down my cheeks. "Okay," I sniffled. "But only tonight. I can't promise anything after that." He barked out a laugh before reaching out to give my hand a firm and warm squeeze. "That's all I can ask for," he said with love. We had a few minutes to recoup before we got to our customary tree farm. It was enough time to wipe our eyes and stop crying, but not enough to make the redness disappear. I really hoped the bitter cold helped with that when we got inside. As we pulled up, the regular greeter came to direct us to the parking lot. "Jer, how you been, buddy?" the greeter greeted. "We've seen better days." "Yeah, no kidding. I bet it was a rough ride out here in the snow and all. Hey there, Maggie. Nice to see you," he continued. "Say, where's the missus at? She get cold feet this year?" He laughed to himself. We froze. A pit in my stomach quickly rose to my throat. How could he have not have known? We lost Ashley over the summer. My dad tried to play it nonchalantly, but it came off as a desperate plea. I grabbed his hand and squeezed it back as the greeter's face turned ghostly white. "Oh my God, I had no idea." He stumbled over his apology, frantic to get the words out. Dad exhaled. "It's all right. We didn't tell many people, but she's with us in spirit." He put on the bravest face as tears threatened his sight. Yeah, here in spirit," the greeter mumbled to himself, trying not to make eye contact. "If you want, you can park right in front of the office. Make it easy for you to get started." Dad paused. "Gonna take you up on that. Thanks." He clapped the greeter's shoulder before turning to the little shack covered in dazzling lights. We sat for another long and awkward moment, both of us recovering from the gut punch that was that conversation. Dad broke first. "This is the worst it'll ever be. Just remember that, Mags." He sighed with a deep, grounding breath. "It'll be a little easier next year, and the year after that, and the year after that." I wiped the fresh tears I didn't know I shed away as I struggled to put my coat on. After we got out, he waited for me to round the front of the truck before wrapping an arm around my shoulder and walking me in tandem to the office. There, the owner of the farm welcomed us with a warm smile. "Jerry, Maggie, it's good to see you out here. How you holding up with this weather?" he asked. "We made it out here, didn't we?" Their hands clapped hard as they shook. "Sounds like a dap to me." Yeah. Yeah, like old friends. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt like they were having a whole other conversation. They chatted for a bit while I stood around looking at the pictures on the wall. So many families with their first trees. Families that came year after year to get trees. Our family getting a tree 3 years ago. Our family, me, Dad, and Mom, standing around a rinky-dink tree that year. "Hey, Dad, come look at this," I called. The same sad smile he had earlier crossed my lips. I couldn't see his reaction, but I could hear him walk up next to me before giving me a tight side hug. He knew what I was looking at before he saw himself. "Isn't she beautiful?" he lulled before kissing the top of my head. A newfound determination warmed my heart as I looked at us. Little me so happy to have helped Mom find her charming tree that year. I wanted to do it again. I wanted to feel that smile again. Feel the whimsy she always brought with everything she said. "I'm ready to find a tree," I said as I wiped my eyes. "Yeah?" Dad questioned eagerly. I nodded. "Let's go find Mom's tree." We said our goodbyes as we started making our way to the acres of pine. There were only a handful of cars in the parking lot, and we were still early in the season, so we both knew that our choices would be endless. But that's not what we were looking for. We didn't want the perfect tree. We wanted Mom's tree. The one that would never find a home. The one that needed so much tender love and care. We needed to find our tree, and it was in this manufactured forest just waiting for us to get it. We began our search row by row. I was old enough now to look down the rows by myself, so Dad and I split up to cover more ground. He'd take one row, I'd take the next, and so on until we find the one. Every now and then I'd stop to see a lopsided tree, but none of them really called out to me and screamed Mom. So we searched and searched and searched until we were halfway through the farm. We met back up close to the office, and Dad suggested we go back inside for a few minutes to warm up and get some hot cocoa. That sounded pretty good to me. So we head back inside to find the shack empty and dark. The sign on the floor still said, "Come on in." So we did just that. Dad turned the lights on and started heading over to the corner where a Keurig sat with a wide selection of K-cups. I'm not sure why, but when he said hot cocoa, I imagined something more akin to handmade than Swiss Miss. Regardless, I wasn't going to say no to something toasty. I sat down at the manager's desk and started swiveling in his chair, waiting for Dad to finish making our drinks. It took nearly 5 minutes for that machine to crank out 2 cups. But by the time we got them, we were warmed up and headed back out in the fake wilderness for round 2. We started down opposite aisles and looked one by one at all the trees. But again, nothing truly called to me. It wasn't until we got to one of the last few rows that a lone tree stood out. It was huge, unruly even. All the branches facing me were massive and shooting out far longer than they should have. The top leaning slightly over my head at a cockeyed angle. Dusty green pine needles were layered so thickly on the side you couldn't even see the trunk. This all looked so promising. I spun around to see the buried side of the tree, and immediately you could tell all of its energy was put into its far side. There was a dead space of pine needles and barren, shriveled branches. Its competing tree was planted so close that the side barely had any room to grow out. This was the tree Mom would have talked to, soothed its poor worries away, told it that we had a forever home with our family. This was Mom's tree. "Dad!" I yelled towards the row he was in. "Come check this out!" He called back from a considerable distance. "Be right there." I waited patiently, combing over the tree time and time again. Every look over, I fell more in love with it. It was wonky in all the right places, had a character unlike the rest. This tree was perfect. I heard Dad's footsteps crunching in the snow, coming closer, so I shimmied through the trees to surprise him. "Hey!" I jumped out. Someone else's dad jumped back and grabbed his chest. "Jesus!" he yelled, taking a big step back. "What the hell is your problem?" His booming voice made me cower. I'm sorry, I thought you were my dad," I said sheepishly, scared of making him more upset. Just then I heard Dad approaching and felt even more embarrassed. "What's going on?" He wrapped his arm around my shoulder and tucked me close. His tone was firm, defensive, as he went to protect me. "This your fucking kid?" The man took a swig from his open can before his growing voice continued. "Maybe keep a leash on her next time. Wouldn't want anything to happen to your little girl, would you?" His smile was lewd as he combed me over. I shuddered despite the cold. Dad started leading me to the side as he groveled in apology. It's like he used to do with Grandpa before we cut contact. Completely disengage and walk away. We cut through the rows of trees back to where I was before. Then Dad asked, "Are you okay?" "I think so." I looked down at my feet, still humiliated by the conflict. He brought me in for a big hug. What he said wasn't right, honey. Not at all. But we got to know when to pick our battles, and that wasn't a battle worth fighting. He continued. "And you're not in trouble. You did nothing wrong." He kissed the top of my head, but I was unable to get that man's dark, smiling eyes out of my head. The way he looked me up and down made me feel so dirty. I buried my face into Dad's jacket, trying to cleanse myself. I stood in his embrace until the grime of the man began to wash away. After letting go, I reminded myself that we were here for Mom's tree, and nothing was going to stop us from getting it. It's over here. I grabbed his hand and dragged him to the tree with renewed excitement. You have to see this tree. It's beautiful. We walked a few feet before stopping in front of it. Dad squeezed my hand tight as he looked. It's got charm, he said hesitantly. And you say that every year, I beamed. He looked down at me. A yearning smile lit his face. We both craved the nostalgia of the past pickings. What do you think she'd do if she saw this one? He asked. Skip to the office and get to chopping. Yeah, she probably would. So what are we waiting for? I started pulling him to the office again, nearly on the other side of the farm now. He didn't fight as we both trotted to get the saw. A long walk in and another conversation with the owner later, we headed back to our tree, saw in hand and determination in our eyes. On the way back, my imagination started running. The years of watching Mom decorate for the holidays and even inheriting all her decor gave me inspiration for how to spruce up this tree. I thought aloud as we walked, Dad agreeing to everything I threw out. I was going to make a feature out of the whole, border it in lights and tinsel, put her favorite tree topper on its crooked crown, put her urn on a shelf right in front of the tree's centerpiece. This was going to be the best Christmas tree we've ever made, and Mom would be right there to help. As we got to our tree, we saw someone standing next to it, examining its neighbor that forced ours into its unnatural quirk. He looked up at us, and those same dark eyes from before dragged from me to Dad, to the saw in Dad's hand. What the hell do you think's the big idea, buddy? The man slurred. Dad paused before speaking, choosing his words very carefully. We're just trying to get our tree. You mean my tree? He pointed to our tree's neighbor. No, we're getting the tree. I ain't seen my Lisbeth in years. You're not taking that tree for my baby girl. He staggered toward us. Dad got in front of me. We're not taking... You ain't taking shit. Before Dad could react, the man shuffled and a small crack echoed around us. Dad stood frozen for just a moment. A large hole in the back of his head spewed blood and brain all over me before crumpling to the ground. I couldn't move. What just happened? I watched my dad as he twitched a few times, then went completely limp. Fuck! Oh, fuck! The man started stomping, but I couldn't look up at him. Dad's blood and hot cocoa spilled all over my shoes and the track-covered snow as he laid motionless at my feet. My mind couldn't catch up with my body as blood-curdling screams ripped through me, my feet nailed in place. Dad was still, the saw's teeth up and partially embedded in his torso as he fell on it. My screams reverberated off the trees, and I saw everything from someone else's eyes. It was like I was watching everything in an up-close theater. Surround sound, full blast, screeching back into my ears, everything distorted in odd wide angles, colors way too crisp to be real. The vivid blood so red and thick. It ran everywhere. I could feel it freezing on my cheeks. I barely saw the man before he charged me, and I couldn't fight back. My body was unresponsive. All I could do was scream, even when he covered my mouth, and as he tried to drag me away, he pinched my nose and mouth closed. I didn't realize what he'd done to me until I had no more air, and I started frantically flailing to get away from him, but he was too strong. The last thing I remembered was my dad and his mutilated head before getting farther and farther away from me as the bitter cold bit at my blood-splattered cheeks. I woke up with a massive headache. My eyes struggled to flutter open, but when they did, I saw I wasn't at the farm anymore. A surge of panic flew through me as I tried to move, but was unable. My limbs were bound in duct tape, and I tried frantically to look around, but stopped because of the pain. I had duct tape wrapped around my head in several layers, pulling at my hair and covering my mouth tight. Shit! a disgustingly familiar voice said next to me. My eyes darted to the side, and I saw the man watching me as he drove. We were in an old beat-up truck, somewhere far on a barely plowed back road. I immediately started struggling, not knowing what else to do. This couldn't be real. There was no way this was happening. The man swerved as I kept squirming. "Would you knock it off?" he yelled, raising his hand and slapping me. He nearly swerved into a snowbank doing so. Even with the layers of tape protecting my skin, the force of his hand stung fierce across my face. I let out a muffled squeal as my head burned. Tears freely poured down the tape as the nightmare of what was happening started setting in. "Shut up!" he roared again, winding up for a second strike. I flinched hard into the passenger door, the movement ripping chunks of my hair from my scalp. I cried again. His hand never came as the tense seconds passed. I slowly uncoiled and saw him hunched over, laser focused on the road ahead. "I'm not afraid to hit a little whore like you. Don't try that shit again," he spat. Time seemed useless while trapped in the cabin of this truck as the man drove feverishly into oblivion. The more I sat, the more everything settled. I had vague memories of what led to this point. The field of trees, beautiful hazy lights, the taste of chocolate, the smell of Dad's leather jacket, my red-stained fall boots. I tried looking down and saw to my horror that my shoes were still deeply drenched in the hardening red. I could feel it beginning to crust in my socks. A new sense of fear ripped through me as the images flashed faster. Dad, the man, the pop, Dad's head. I cried harder and harder. Dad's head, the inside of his skull caking my face, blood everywhere. Dad laying dead at my feet. I screamed as the memories overwhelmed me. "I said knock it off!" the man screamed back, taking out his gun and smashing the butt end into my temple. Everything came and went in a blur after that. I remember trying to figure out how to escape, reaching my hands limply up to the door handle, but the man ripped them away. The searing pain in my wrists as he pulled me closer to him. His rancid, weedy stomach tainted his mouth as he breathed on me. My memory went blank as we pulled up to the shadow of a house, bathed in the snowy dark glow of night. My eyes were practically glued shut by the time I realized what had happened. Every inch of me was cold and battered. Besides the tape that now bound my dislocated arms behind my back and shackled my legs and mouth, I was completely nude. The snow slowly stopped burning needles into my skin and instead brazened deep into my flesh. But this was much more comforting than before. It was like my parents were giving me one more hug out in the wilds. Hell, I could hear their voices too. "Come here, sweet baby. It's okay. I have you now." Mom and Dad's allured hum surrounded me as the tides of winter slowly buried me in steep drifts of snow. It let my deforming imagination flutter one last time as I pictured us as a family huddled under Mom's Christmas tree this year. The hoarse giggles I strained to get out carried me through our final Christmas together as a family again. And there you have it. Oh, man. So that one was All We Wanted Was Mom's Tree from nuisance_bringer. Yeah, so I'm not surprised. I've read it 3 times so far, so all good. But yeah, that ending is like, okay, so maybe it was the tag on the story. It says body horror. So like for me, what I thought was going to happen the first time I read it, I thought it was going to be some sort of like fucked up amalgamation of human and tree. They were going to create that into their tree. Like somehow all the shady characters was like a hint at some sort of like otherworldly dimension that or thing that was happening within that what do you call it? Like place where you would buy trees. And when they left, the tree would just like somehow distort and turn into this fucked up being of like man tree or like woman tree. and they were all gonna like celebrate how cool it looked around like some, you know, campfire or something. That's how I imagined it going. So like the whole kidnapping and like all that thing was way more real. So it's fucked up in that aspect of it. And the ending, like him kidnapping her, I assume to, you know, get rid of evidence or like no witnesses. And then instead of, you know, like killing her and like burying her out in the middle of nowhere, he strips her of her clothes, which I assume is to get rid of that evidence, leaves her tied up just to die in the winter. That's fucked up, dude. Like, what a way to go. But I think from what I've heard and what I've read, if you were to die that way, at some point you're going to lose, you know, like all feeling in your body. So I really don't think that would be a bad way to go. It'd be better than burning alive, that's for sure. But yeah, that was a good one, man. Hope you win the July submission. I don't know what you're up against, but hope you do. And those were our stories. So I thank both authors for letting me read their stories. And I thank all the current followers and all the new people coming to listen. Really appreciate you coming by. You have all my love. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, let me know your ideas. Like I want to mold this around everybody so we can all enjoy. And this can be like a collaborative, you know, podcast where we can all do things together. So that being said, I will see you guys next week in the next one. I was thinking about reading another story, but I don't want to just burn all my resources right off the bat. So yeah, I love you guys. We'll see you in the next one. Tell me what you think, either on the email, the Patreon, or or in the comments on Spotify. I forgot you could do that. So yeah, love you guys. See ya.